Hello everyone and welcome to Tech with Robert to get started with T-SQL course. In this course we're going to talk about joins and it's going to be more of a theoretical lecture now, and then in the upcoming lectures we're going to dive into actually writing the different joins. But I want to dedicate this lecture to sort of walk through the different kind of joins and sort of explain what joins are and take it from the most basic step until we build on more to that with writing actual queries where we practice these joins that we will learn in this lecture. But before we get started, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Give a thumbs up on the video if you like what I do. It really helps me to know what I do well and what you guys want me to improve or focus more on in the future lectures. So without further ado, let's dive right in and talk about joins. So when we talk about joins, what we've done now, up until now, we have only been querying data from one table. And so we've mainly queried the customer table. We've got some queries and columns from the customer table, and we have been also taking a look at some queries where we query columns from the fact internet sales table. And so what if we wanted to combine columns from two or more tables? That is when joins come into play. And so a lot of times we have a lot of data and we have a lot of different tables, and these tables are connected somehow. They are related to each other through some key columns. For example, in the fact internet sales table, for each sale that we provide, we have a customer key, and then we also have, but in that table we only store the customer key. So, and then we have the customer table, and in that customer table we also have that corresponding customer in that customer key. But in the customers table we are storing the information about that customer, so the name, the last name, first name, middle name, the email address, how many children they have, their yearly income, and so on. And that is data that we don't store directly in the sales table. So we're using the customer key to sort of look up the values for that customer, and we provide the description of that customer in different fields in the customer table, so not in the sales table. And this is true for many other types of data. For example, in the sales table we could have the customer key, the product key, sales territory key, but in the fact internet sales table we're only storing those key values. If you wanted to look up, for example, the sales territory region, the country, or the continent, and then the product, the name, and the customer's email address, all of these pieces of information are stored in different tables. So we must use joins if we want to combine and extract these columns from many different tables that we have. And so I'm going to dive into these a lot more deeper, but for now, just to know that there are different types of joins. So we have the inner join, the left join, the right join, the full join or the full outer join, and also the self join. And we're going to look at a lot of examples in the upcoming lectures, but it's really, really important to know what join to use when, because if you don't use the correct joins, you will get some unexpected results, and some of these errors or bugs that you can run into when using the wrong join in the wrong situation, or at least not knowing or fully understanding what it means when you use a specific join, you can get some unexpected results. And three of these types of unexpected results that you can get are that you get duplicate rows. So for example, if you have a sales table where you have, for example, let's say that you're storing sales order ID and then you have the customer name, so you have you're storing Robert, but then in the customer table you have, let's say, 10 customers whose first name is Robert. So if you only join on the first name, so you say that, okay, sales order ID 1 and we have the customer name Robert, and then use an inner join and you only join on the customer name, the first name, SQL Server will not know which customer, which Robert you mean. So instead of getting one row with, let's say, sales amount of 100, you will instead get all of the 10 rows with Robert. So instead you will get, when you summarize the sales amount, you will get 1,000 instead of 100. So there you will get duplicate rows and also incorrect aggregations. That is a part of duplicate rows because you will summarize the data wrong. And you can also miss out on rows. For example, if in the same example, if you have the sales table, and let's say you have customer ID 1 and 2 and then 3, but in the customers table you only have customer with ID 1 and 2, and then you do an inner join from the sales table to the customer table, you will not get the sales for the customer ID 3 because that customer does not exist in the customers table, and you said that you wanted an inner join, and you will only then you will get only the matching rows from both tables. So we're going to dive in a little bit deeper in them, and it's for now I just want you to sort of understand that it's really important to know all of these different joins and when to use them, because otherwise you will get very unexpected results. So if we take a look at a very basic ER model, this is an example of how a database schema could look like. So we could say that we have a table here called sales order, and where we have the sales order ID, customer ID, product ID, sales amount, and the sales quantity. And I'm just going to show you this picture here first, but if you wanted let's say you wanted to create a query and you wanted to create a pivot table where you wanted to see the customer state, the customer name, product, and the product name, and then the sales amount and the sales quantity, and you wanted to combine all of these fields into one query. If we go back here and we see in the sales order table, we have the sales amount and the sales quantity, but if we wanted the customer state and the customer name, so we can see the customer state is in the customer geography table and the customer name is in the customer table, whereas the product name is stored in the product table. So if we only queried like we've done up until now, if we only use and query one table, the sales order table, we could only get the customer ID. But if we wanted to get the customer name, we would have to perform a join between the sales order table and the customer table. And so if we wanted to create this join, we would need a common field that we can join on. So in this case, for example, we would have, okay, customer ID 1 with a sales amount of 100 and he ordered 1 in a sales quantity. But customer ID 1, if we look that customer up in the customers table, we see customer ID 1. Let's say his name was Robert and he had this phone number and this email. And if we wanted to get these fields and use them in the same query, we would need to perform a join between the sales order table and the customer table based on the common field, which in this case is the customer ID. And the same thing applies for if we wanted to see the total sales amount and the sales quantity, and we wanted to see them based on the product code or the product name, we would have to perform a join between sales order table and product table. And in a query, we could have 1 or we could have 100 joins to 100 different tables. So in this case, if we wanted to, in this example here, we can see that these two fields here, they are stored in the sales amount table. This field here is from the product table, and these two fields are from the customer table, or this is from the customer table and this is from the customer geography table. So here we would need this table over here, and these two tables. So we would need a total of 4 tables to be able to display this information in a query. And in the upcoming lectures, I'm going to talk more about these, and we're going to start off by talking about inner joins. So I will see you guys in the next lecture.